Good morning and welcome to Kunsang Pyo Chulin. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're really happy to have you. And the video that we will be showing of Jetsunma's previous teaching, which was in, let's see, I'm pulling this up now, 1990, I believe, July of 1990. And the title is A Hands-On Guide to Personal Change. Hope you enjoy it.
The Buddha teaches us that there are certain activities that produce beneficial results. And the Buddha defines beneficial in a very specific sense. For instance, it might seem beneficial, for instance, to buy a new pair of shoes. Beneficial in that perhaps the old shoes have worn out, or perhaps you need a certain kind of shoes for a certain kind of occasion. And that occasion may seem to be important in your life. So it may seem like a good idea and a beneficial thing to buy a pair of shoes. But according to the Buddha's teaching, the benefit that is derived from that is pretty insignificant, and sometimes can be even a part of a deluded process or a deluded thought process that can actually lead to more desire or more attachment. The Buddha did teach that desire is the cause for suffering, that no matter what suffering we see in the world, whether it's old age, sickness, or death, whether it's poverty, whether it's starvation, hunger, or whatever it happens to be, that if we were to trace all the cause and effect relationships back to their original source, if we could possibly do that, and since we've been around since time out of mind, that's pretty impossible to do, but if we could, we would find that the ultimate cause, the causative factor for all of those events is desire. So buying another pair of shoes may actually inflate desire, or it may exaggerate it. Well, the Buddha doesn't tell us not to buy a pair of shoes. There's nothing in the teaching that says not to do that. But instead, the Buddha very carefully tries to describe what kind of benefit we're really after, what it is that we really want. In order to do that, the Buddha has described very carefully the faults of cyclic existence. How cyclic existence is a series of cause and effect interdependent relationships that arise and continually develop and exaggerate, and that what seems to be an isolated instance in our lives and in our perceptions isn't that at all, but rather it is something that arises from causes and effects that we probably can't even see, that perhaps extend as far back as time out of mind, some rootless time that we can't even fathom, beginningless time that we can't even fathom. There is no isolated event. There is no event that simply happened. There is no event that came out of the blue and is causeless. Every single experience that we have has a cause, and that cause may not be visible in this life, but certainly the cause is true and it is exacting. According to the Buddha, having examined the faults of cyclic existence and having seen how convoluted, how complicated is the world of appearances, in that everything that appears has some cause, how impossible it is to really ascertain exactly what the cause is, how difficult it is to arrive at a place that is stable and free from obstacles, free from trouble within cyclic existence, because causes continually ripen no matter what we do, and we continually create them whether or not we're conscious of them within our own minds. The Buddha teaches us to abandon cyclic existence, meaning that we should look at the content of cyclic existence and see for ourselves that it does not produce happiness or stability. According to the Buddha's teaching, no matter how we live or what we are involved in or what circumstances surround us, whether they seem to be more pleasant than others or whether they seem to be really obviously circumstances that produce suffering, the Buddha teaches us that we all have common sufferings: old age, sickness, and death. That we all have to deal with the suffering of suffering. That we all have to deal with impermanence. And that none of us can really find a permanent, stable kind of happiness, one upon which we can depend. Having seen that for ourselves, we then abandon cyclic existence in that we do not look to instigate more causes for the continuation of cyclic existence. We do not look to cling to those cause and effect relationships that continue the process. We look to turn our minds. And in the Buddhist teachings, we are taught to turn our minds to the objects of refuge. On one level, the objects of refuge are considered to be the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the three jewels of refuge. On another level, the supreme object of refuge is understood to be enlightenment itself, our own nature, our own primordial wisdom nature. That nature, which is our true nature, which is the true face of mind, is the supreme object of refuge. According to the Buddhist teachings, there are certain things that one must accomplish in order to achieve that goal, in order to truly reach for those objects of refuge, in order to truly accomplish enlightenment. There are certain things that one must do. It is not enough to just sit around thinking that sitting around thinking about it is going to produce the optimum result. A perfect example of that is a recent conversation I had with a couple that had recently gotten off of 3-year retreat. They were a very nice couple and they were very nicely honest, which helped me a great deal, and I asked them if I could use this story at some time. And they gave me permission. They went into 3-year retreat after actually being invited to do so by His Holiness Khyentse Rinpoche, which is a great honor, and if you were going to get puffed up and inflated, that would certainly be something that you could do it about. They were asked to go into retreat after really having never been involved in Dharma before at all, after only having been involved in generic metaphysics, just sort of New Age stuff, and not having any of that kind of experience under their belt. They went directly into 3-year retreat. And of course, having been asked by His Holiness to go into retreat and having been involved in the New Age and not having the discipline of a very structured path, They immediately began to, how did they put it? Display their supreme omniscience, which is that in the group of 3-year retreaters, they began to act in a very prideful way. They began to expose the fact that they really felt that they were much further along than they actually were. Expose it in a very unflattering way. So they both, particularly the man, had a very difficult time in 3-year retreat. An extremely difficult time, in that he found himself constantly wanting to show his knowledge, constantly wanting to display his wisdom and his incredible omniscience, which must have been what made Khyentse Rinpoche invite him to go on retreat in the first place, because he was already supremely omniscient. You can appreciate that, can't you? They began to display their pride, display their arrogance, display their knowledge, just basically show their knowledge, if you know what I mean. And on this 3-year retreat, they were constantly put into solitary practice. Particularly the man was constantly put into solitary practice. He would really goof up and make a complete spectacle out of himself, and then be put into solitary practice. And he would be in solitary practice for a long period of time, and maybe for a month he would practice really intently, not talking to anyone else, just even taking meals privately, and put his heart into it, really practice very intently. And then eventually he would come out of his solitary practice, and the moment he met up with any other person, it doesn't matter who it was, any other person, that pride and arrogance would come up again, and he would make a complete fool out of himself. All of the things that caused him to be put into solitary practice before would arise again. He would think that he had made so much progress, that his mind was completely spacious, that he was like that far from enlightenment. And he would really think like that, and then he would meet up with one other person, and that compulsive irritation would come up, or some conflict would come up, or he would become obsessed with how it should be, and that person was wrong and he was right, and all of those things that people do when they run into each other in that regard. This happened enough times, many times, that he was put into retreat and came out again and found himself in the same position, seemingly no better than before, just as arrogant, just as willful, and just as omniscient. And finding himself in that position again and again and again, he began to be quite concerned and quite embarrassed. By the time the retreat ended, he found out what 3-year retreat was all about. He said, you know, it would have been my tendency before to bounce out of 3-year retreat and walk up to just about any other Dharma practitioner and say, I've been in 3-year retreat. Have you? And wait for the answer. And be very prideful about that. Be very happy that he had been in 3-year retreat and most other people haven't. And he said, but fortunately, right before 3-year retreat was over, he found out something about 3-year retreat. That what you find out in 3-year retreat is how abysmal your ignorance is. How seemingly endless is your ineptitude. How very far away, really, is your omniscience. And how much work you have to do. He actually came out of 3-year retreat very humbled, very much feeling that he had a long way to go, very much feeling the equal or even the inferior of many other people. Now you would think, why would a person want to come out with that lack of confidence? Actually, he didn't come out with a lack of confidence, because what promoted his omniscient act before, and what promoted his dealings with other people to look as they did before, was a true lack of confidence. He knew he didn't really have that much going for him, but he tried to fake it. Coming out of 3-year retreat, he had an honest view of himself. He felt more in touch, more competent, and it was okay. It was just okay that he was a student. It was okay that he had a long way to go. And it was peaceful and a happy thing to be humble. Well, that's a really great place to be, actually. And if one can come out of, there are many people that come out of 3 retreat and haven't come that far. They haven't even done that. To come out of 3-year retreat with that kind of progress is a most extraordinary, most excellent thing. I think he did a terrific job. And I think that he's closer to making progress than he thinks. But I probably wouldn't tell him that yet. Wait till he does 3 more years. The idea that I'm trying to bring about is that we have a certain kind of attraction to being, even more than attraction, we have a certain kind of compulsion to be involved in those activities that do not produce good result. And we have a certain kind of dimness or dullness about taking hold of those things that do produce good result. And it's very hard to understand how that can happen. But it happens equally to practitioners as it does to those that are just starting in their practice. For those people that are just starting in their practice, they're actually in a very good place. They're innocent, and they're fresh, and they're new. And they can look at themselves and do so with courage, and they can develop that habit right from the very beginning. For practitioners who have been practicing for some time and have not developed the habit of really looking at themselves honestly, they are in a tougher place. It's a tough habit to break. And the result of not breaking that habit can be a disaster, in that even one's spiritual life, one's practice, can become an impediment. It's hard to think that that's true, but sometimes the most crippled among us are those that have been involved in spiritual practice for the longest time, or those that have been put in a position of authority or knowledge, or exposed as being someone who has practiced. Often those people are the most crippled and have to take the most drastic steps in order to prevent the continuation of that process. It can be a humbling thing. It should be a humbling thing if you do it right. Somehow, even while we have been taught very clearly that to exhibit good behavior, or to involve ourselves in good behavior, does produce good result, and that to involve ourselves in negative behavior always produces negative result, doesn't seem to have sunk in. Even in a life of practice, for instance, we've had these teachings again and again and again, and yet we find ourselves taking refuge not in enlightenment, the ultimate state, not in the precious objects of refuge, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, although we pay lip service to that, although we say we do, but we more easily take refuge in, for instance, being right. We love that. Got to be right. Or being intelligent. We love that one too. Or being competent. These ideas, rightness, intelligence, and competence, what are they? They're ideas formulated by you. When we die, these ideas are like puffballs. They melt with our minds. These things that we have sought as objects of refuge, these things that we have clung to, they are puffballs. They're gone. We have held on to something that is not enduring. And we have tricked ourselves into wasting our time. Even the example that I used before of a pair of shoes. A pair of shoes is not a permanent fixture. If you wear it, it will wear out. If you don't wear it, eventually it will decay. It won't last forever. Or go out of style. Or your feet will change. Or you'll die and you won't have any feet to wear them. Lots of things can happen. But when one chooses the ultimate goal, when one has as the supreme object of refuge that state which is enlightenment itself. When one seeks to see, to know, and to abide spontaneously in the primordial wisdom nature, and to behold the true face. The result that is achieved by that activity and the activities that lead to that are right conduct, meditation. In the Mahayana point of view specifically, we talk about the accumulation of wisdom and knowledge. These kinds of activities, making offerings, kindness, these kinds of things that are taught again and again and again, produce permanent results in that they actually purify one's perception and purify one's mind stream. So that upon the time of death, the experience that one has as one separates from the body or as the elements dissolve and one leaves the body, the experience of transition that one has as one enters into the bardo state is a purer and clearer experience, and there is at that time the opportunity to achieve enlightenment. That never happens because you were right. That never happens because you were intelligent. That never happens because you were superior in your thoughts. And it never happens because you had a pair of shoes. Still, we can't seem to understand, and we cling to the wrong things. The little task that I gave the children of writing down 5 things that do not produce good results and looking at 5 things they could do instead that do produce good results sounds like a very simple and childish thing to do. Then why is it that we don't do that? If it's so simple and so childish, why is it that we who are adults can't seem to think it through? We go to teachings, we hear the theory, you're hearing what I say now, you're perfectly intelligent people, you can understand what I'm saying. But what will you do with your time when you leave here? Will you examine the activities in your life? Will you look at things that you can do that lead you to better results? Will you examine the fruitlessness of some of your behavior? And more than that, will you really change? One of the worst things that I see constantly, something that I consider a tragedy, is the kind of student that reads the books and studies the teachings and learns about it and has all kinds of insightfulness and never really changes because they're too grown up to sit down and figure out what you could do that's better than what you do now. It's not like you have to be creative and think anything up. The Buddha has already done that for you. We know that meditation brings about enlightenment. We know that making offerings brings about enlightenment. We know that generosity brings about enlightenment. We know that practice brings about enlightenment. We know that recitation brings about enlightenment. We know that the accumulation of knowledge, the understanding of cause and effect relationships in order to change one's behavior brings about enlightenment. We know that study brings about enlightenment. We know that meditation upon emptiness brings about enlightenment. Yet we do these things far less than we do the things that produce much lesser results. Perhaps it's better to do as the children do. To be okay with the fact that we still are beginners and we're still learning from scratch. Perhaps it's better to have that kind of humility. Perhaps it's better to put in the time, even as the children are putting in the time, in building a foundation of transferring what you learn in your teachings into your real life. Again and again and again, students have the misconception that all you have to do is do the practices, follow the practices by rote. That you just do your mantra recitation and your visualization and somehow everything will work out all right. Absolutely you should do your mantra and your visualization. Absolutely you should accomplish your practice. But you should burn the candle at both ends. Because while you are accomplishing your practice, that isn't the only thing the Buddha said to do. The Buddha also said that right activity and right conduct really count. You should examine what you do. You should examine your thoughts. It really isn't okay to let yourself get away with some of the thoughts that you have. It really isn't okay to let yourself carry around resentment and hatred. It really isn't okay to roll over on your back and whine about your circumstances. These things aren't okay. Why are they not okay? It's not that they make you a bad boy or girl, but they're not okay because they don't produce good results. They simply don't. The Buddha teaches us that it is more possible, and let me see if I can remember the exact instance, to catch the wind in a lasso. That it is more possible for fire to burn cold than it is for cause and effect relationships for karma to be less than exacting. And what that means is that if we carry hatred around in our minds, it will always produce an exacting external event. Always. There are no exceptions. It is more likely that you could catch the wind with a lasso than that you could dupe your own mind or somehow trip up that process. There are no exceptions. So that makes us think, doesn't it? It makes us think that maybe in our spiritual life we should have a very hands-on attitude. That we should be involved in our lives. I think that we aren't. I think sometimes we approach spirituality in a very hands-off attitude. We like go to the temple and do our practice, and then we go home, and then we are ourselves. Remaining unchanged, essentially unchanged, for years and years at a time. Instead, we should develop a hands-on attitude. That is to say that we really want to produce change. And that means we have to examine the kinds of behavior that we do and exchange them for more beneficial behavior. The way that that acts is like this. First of all, the Buddha teaches us that the mind can only concentrate on one thing at a time. Even though it seems that we're thinking of 10 things at a time. How many people feel like they're doing 10 things at a time? Actually, that's not true. You can only do one thing at a time. But you're quick, and you can bounce from thought to thought to thought to thought. But only one thought can be thought at a time. What that means is that if you have hatred in your mind, and you switch tracks from that hatred to thoughts of loving kindness by practicing some wishing prayers, or by engaging in some activity that is beneficial to others, you have actually removed your fixation from hatred to kindness. And the analogy that's used is that while there may be a pile of hatred over here, if you keep adding to the pile of kindness, eventually the pile of kindness will outweigh the pile of hatred. And the fixation in your mind will remain there. And you will change. And what comes from you will change. And your life will change. It will take some doing, because this pile is big. But it's like anything else. If it's your job to shovel a ton of coal, there's no way you're going to get it done by talking about it. There's no way you're going to get it done by thinking about it. The only way to get it done is to get the shovel and get to shoveling. And eventually, that ton of coal will be moved. There isn't any big secret in the universe. That's it. That's it. What I think is really funny is that people will come to study spiritual practice, and they'll come to a spiritual teacher and they'll think, if I'm really good, if I'm really impressive, maybe he or she will tell me the secrets of the universe. That's it. You just heard it. What you do in your mind is what you do. If you create the causes that lead closer to enlightenment, you will achieve enlightenment. If you create the causes that lead to lower rebirth, you will achieve lower rebirth. That's the big secret. Welcome to the wonderful world of spirituality. The good news about that is that the ball is in your court. You have the power. No one can take it away from you. No one can cause you to suffer. No matter what it seems like, if you are suffering, then you can tell by that suffering what you did in a previous time, because you're seeing the result of that. No one can cause you to suffer, and no one can take your power away from you. That simply isn't possible. That's the good news. And it goes hand in glove with the secrets of the universe. So the term that I like to use in closing, and one that I use constantly, is basically, that's it. The ball's in your court. And you have a choice. Just like always, you get to hit it back, or you get to play with it for a while. So think what you want to do. Think what results you would like. Examine yourself. Look at your thoughts. You can see that when you're prideful and arrogant, it's not going to produce good results. Manage yourself. And then learn how to practice so that you can purify your mind and have more spaciousness in order to accomplish this management. Watch the deeds of your life. If they're all selfish, ask yourself, what can they produce? And then change. Start shoveling the coal. You can do that now. You don't need a special blessing. You can just start. So that's our teaching for today. And as always, I ask people to remember that you don't come here on Sunday morning to be entertained, although I know sometimes it's fun to sit around and do this. If you use these teachings, if you really carry them over into your life, then they're useful. You haven't wasted your time and you haven't wasted mine. But if you don't use them, then it's just entertainment. So thank you very much for coming, and I hope that you do use them.
Thank you very much for joining with us. I'm sorry the video and audio were somewhat out of sync, where our internet is doing some strange things. So anyway, I'm so glad you were here. I'm glad you joined us for the teaching. And just to let you know that coming up in about an hour on also YouTube, Facebook, I believe, and Zoom is a combination meditation, teaching, Q&A, and Chinrezi practice offered by Khenpo Tenzin Karzai. It's for everyone. It's a kind of a family thing. There'll be, some questions. You'll be able to ask questions in the chat. He's currently teaching on the, if you look at the calendar on, let me just jump for a second to, I can't do that, can I? I don't want to knock you off and jump to a calendar. If you check our calendar and you check the event, the description will give you the, what he's talking about. It starts out with join us on Sundays at 11:30 for a meditation class led by Khenpo Karzai, followed by a public talk and Q&A. The meditation focus varies from class to class. We're currently learning how to meditate on the 4 immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. The class begins with 30 minutes of meditation instruction, followed by 5 to 10 minutes of meditation practice, and then continues with discussion and Q&A. Each session concludes with a brief Chinrezi practice in which we recite Om Mani Padme Hum. The prayer is a prayer of compassion, and we dedicate all these prayers to that our efforts benefit all sentient beings. The class offers a strong foundation in meditation, helping cultivate inner peace and compassion amidst busy lives. All are welcome. The program is open to anyone with an interest in Buddhism. You can come to all or any part of the programs. Family is welcome. There is no fee. Just come on in. So come on by, or go to tara.org and check out the calendar, and that will give you the same description and where you can go on Zoom or YouTube. Obviously, you know where to go because you're there now, and so on. So we also offer a meditation on Saturdays. It's by one of our students who's very good at it. So, come and enjoy. And Medicine Buddha practice is every evening at 5:30 p.m. It's a condensed practice of Medicine Buddha in English, and it's offered for all those who are sick, who need Medicine Buddha, who have passed away, who just are in need of some assistance in that way. So jump right on in. People are offering their requests for prayers, and yours can be included as well. So every evening we have a soak, which is a food offering ceremony that generates a lot of merit to keep a lot of other practices going, as well as just generating merit in and of itself, every evening at 7 p.m. Currently, it's usually Rigzen Dupa or Gurkukma Vajrakalaya. All of this is to counter the negativity and just terrible things that are going on in the world today. And we invite you to join us. It's in person and on Zoom, these practices. So again, you can go to the calendar on the website, tara.org, and find all of that. To make an offering to Jetsunma, if you wish to do so, you can do so through her PayPal or Zelle accounts. Both go through jetsunmagift@gmail.com. And so that way you can strengthen your connection with her and keep your own practice going strong. So we invite you to do anything and everything that you might need to do so. And anyway, come back. There'll be another teaching of Jetsunma on Sunday at 10 a.m. Have a wonderful week and take care of yourselves. Anything I've forgotten? I don't know. Anyway, take care of yourselves. Take care of everybody else. I think everybody needs it. And we'll be here for you next week. And we're open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. inside the temple. You can come around the temple. It seems like it's in the back. We call it the south side. It's over by the animals. Is the doorway to the temple. The prayer room itself, which is open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then the outside grounds are open dawn to dusk. So we invite you to join them. We have a lot of land. We have 65 acres across the street of walking trails and meditation gardens. Lots of stupas, lots of places to meditate, lots of places to be. And we invite you to be there for all of it. So thanks. Have a great day and take care. And we hope to see you next time.